It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hint Hive, amplifying women's voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, Queen Bee of this hive, and today we're tackling a topic that's as complex as it is exhilarating: sex. That's right, ladies of the hive. We're shaking things up and taking the covers off of those taboos. So grab your favorite beverage and cozy up because we're about to get real and raw about healthy sexual attitudes and behaviors for women. Okay, let's start by smashing those antiquated myths and misconceptions surrounding women and sex. Ladies, it's time to reclaim our sexual narrative. No, women don't have to fit into some narrow, outdated mold to enjoy a fulfilling sex life. Whether you're adventurous or prefer vanilla, it's all about what feels right for you. Your pleasure, your rules. And guess what? If you're not interested in sex, that's okay too. I might wonder why you're listening to this, because that makes me feel like maybe you are exploring some interest in sex, and that's fine too. I hope you find what you're looking for. But I do want to reiterate, it's okay if you are not interested in sex. Being asexual is fine. Being you, your true, authentic self, is exactly who you need to be. But again, if you're listening because you're starting to explore the world of sex, please feel free to reach out to me if you prefer a more personal conversation, a private conversation, to learn more about this. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about 20 common myths regarding women and sex. I'm just going to go ahead and read all 20 of them and then follow up at the end. Okay, myth number 1. Women don't enjoy sex as much as men. Myth number 2. Women should be passive and submissive during sex. Myth number 3. Women shouldn't have multiple sexual partners. Myth number 4. Women who enjoy casual sex are easy or slutty. Myth number 5. Women don't have sexual fantasies or desires. Myth number 6. Women reach orgasm through penetrative sex alone. Myth number 7. Women should prioritize their partner's pleasure over their own. Myth number 8. Women's libido decreases with age. Myth number 9. Women who use sex toys are unsatisfied with their partners. Myth number 10. Women's sexual preferences are fixed and unchangeable. Myth number 11. Women who dress provocatively are inviting sexual advances. Myth number 12. Women who experience pain during sex are frigid or uninterested. Myth number 13. Women can't initiate sex or express their desires. Myth number 14. Women's sexual satisfaction is solely dependent on their partner's performance. Myth number 15. Women don't watch or enjoy pornography. Myth number 16. Women's sexual orientation can be changed or fixed through therapy. Myth number 17. Women who have had abortions are promiscuous or irresponsible. Myth number 18. Women's sexual pleasure is secondary to reproduction. Myth number 19. Women who experience sexual assault asked for it based on their behavior or attire. And finally, myth number 20. Women don't experience sexual desire after childbirth or during menopause. Okay, that's a lot to take in. because as I read through all 20 of them, it was very difficult for me not to expand on each and every one of them at length. I swear I could do an episode on each and every one of these myths, but I'm really going to try to stay focused today. So, as you reflect on those 20 myths, I'm wondering if you can relate to any of them. Some of them can be incredibly harmful, while others are just a little bit annoying. When I think of women not enjoying sex as much as men, there could be many reasons why that could be true, but it's not true in the sense that we're saying just flat out women don't enjoy sex as much as men. Maybe some women don't. I would bet that there are some women that enjoy sex more than men. So you can't just assign this as a gender thing. I think it's very unique and individualized. And there are many reasons why people enjoy or don't enjoy sex. And it really drives me crazy when women are expected to be passive and submissive. I don't understand where this came from, because women have as much right to enjoy sex and to be assertive and assert her needs as a man. So I just don't get it at all. Like, why do men get to own assertiveness in the bedroom? They don't. I think it's important to note here that if you are a woman who enjoys being passive and submissive during sex, that is wonderful and fine, and make sure you find a partner who wants to take the more assertive role. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Just like there's absolutely nothing wrong with a woman who knows what she wants and goes after it. There's nothing wrong with a woman who is assertive and states her needs in the bedroom. Just like there's nothing wrong with a woman wanting to be dominant in the bedroom. Again, I emphasize here, just make sure you find a partner who is compatible with what your desires are. And when I think of the misconception that women shouldn't have multiple sexual partners, or if they enjoy casual sex, they're called names. This is another one of those double standards that drives me crazy. We covered that a little bit in some prior episodes. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a woman wanting to have sex with more than one person any more than it's wrong for a man to do so. So take gender out of it. There's absolutely no reason for that. If a woman wants to remain a virgin until she gets married and have a standard heterosexual lifestyle, like, that's fine. You know, nobody really makes fun of those women or calls those women names. It's the women who decide, I don't think I want to be in a committed relationship. I want to date around. I'll sleep with who I want to sleep with. All of a sudden, we're tossing names at her, and that's absolutely wrong. Because if a guy does it, he's a stud. He's gaining experience. You know, nothing negative towards him. Although sometimes, if he's dishonest about it, he can be called a player. So, but again, let's just cut those double standards out. There's no need for it. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that further on in the episode. As far as the myth that women don't have sexual fantasies or desires, who the hell came up with that one? Let me tell you. Fantasies and having desires can lead to a much spicier sex life. And if you are a woman who wants to enjoy sex, have at it, fantasize a little bit, and communicate your desires. And again, I'm going to talk about sexual communication a little bit later in the episode. But there's, that's a misconception. Women are allowed to have sexual fantasies. And my favorite, the myth that women reach orgasm through penetrative sex alone. I have a message out there, and it's a message for men, not women, because women probably already know this. But if you don't, I'm going to get to that later too. So for the men, learn about the clitoris and how you can use it to enhance women's sexual satisfaction. It's pretty easy. It's not too complicated. So I promise you, your partner will thank you. If you're a man having sex with women, she will thank you if you find her clitoris and know what to do with it. Again, not that hard. Google it. And as far as women's libido decreasing with age, I don't understand why that is a common misconception. If anything, I have heard that it's typically men, because back in my day, it was always the standard of guys hit their sexual peak in their teens and women hit their sexual peak in their 30s or 40s. And while there can be some commonalities with that, there can be some cases that's the truth. I don't think it really relates to everybody, including the satisfaction level, because I know many men who, while they may have had a higher level of testosterone in their teens, when they got older and they had a little bit more experience under their belt and they had a good partner who helped them to understand, a woman's body a little bit better, they actually enjoyed sex more because they had a higher level of confidence and skill, which translated to a much more enjoyable sex life. And how about that myth? Women who use sex toys are unsatisfied with their partners. I'm sorry, that's so dumb. There may be women out there who are too uncomfortable to explore the world of sex toys, and that's okay too. You don't have to do it. But for the women who do use sex toys, it has, I can't say it has nothing to do with their partner. It could. But I can promise you that women can be completely satisfied with their partners, whether their partner identifies as male, female, non-binary, and still enjoy sex toys, because toys can be an enhancement to sex, not just a substitute for sex. So that's just kind of a dumb myth. And as far as, this is the one that gets me, women dressing provocatively, or women who experience sexual assault asking for it. No, I'm trying really hard not to go off on a rant about that, so I'm not going to allow myself to do that today, but it's not just a myth, it's downright wrong and disgusting and insulting. So I'm not going to go any further other than to say a woman can dress however she wishes, and that does not invite any kind of sexual advances. What invites sexual advances is verbal consent. And I want to briefly touch on women who experience pain during sex. I don't understand why they're labeled as frigid or uninterested or damaged or any of that. There can be multiple reasons why women experience pain during sex, and there are many, many solutions to this that can help, including physical therapy, talking to a sex therapist. There are a lot of reasons behind pain in sex, and none of it has to do with women being frigid or uninterested. It could be a sexual trauma history. It could be a medical trauma history. There can be all kinds of reasons. And if you are with a woman who struggles with pain during sex, compassion is what she needs. Not judgment, not pressure, not condescension. Be a supportive partner to her and encourage her to get the help that she needs to have her body respond in a different manner. And I want to touch on women's satisfaction being solely dependent on their partner's performance, because that's actually one that hurts the partner. as well as the woman. I don't really want to say this because it makes me uncomfortable, but I will anyway. When I was younger and was having sex, I did not know my body. And no matter how skilled my partner was, I wasn't able to enjoy sex because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I liked. I had to discover that later on. So if a woman isn't enjoying sex, it doesn't mean that it is her partner's fault. It could be a combination. It could be one, the other, or a combo. And again, I'll get to that a little bit more later when I talk about a TikTok that I did that got some backlash. As far as the myth about women who have had abortions being promiscuous or irresponsible, that one doesn't sit well with me for so many reasons, because there are multiple reasons why a woman chooses to have an abortion, and not all of them have anything to do with simple birth control. There are multiple reasons, and no matter what the reasons are, it is not a pleasant experience. It's awful for them. I've worked with many women who have had to make heartbreaking decisions in this area. And so people, back off on the judgment. You have no idea, absolutely no idea what they're going through. It's a very personal decision, and it's always painful, both mentally and physically. So don't talk to me about a woman being irresponsible, because guess what? It takes two people in a consensual sexual situation. It takes two people to create a baby. In a non-consensual sexual situation, it takes one person. And yet the woman is the one that bears the consequence of a man's disgusting decision. But again, I'm not going to go there. Not today. And as far as women's sexual pleasure being secondary to reproduction, this goes back to a prior episode where I talked about women being more than breeding stock. We deserve to enjoy sex as much as men, and we were put on this earth to do more than reproduce. And so don't tell me that I don't get to enjoy sex, that I just need to populate the earth, because nope, sorry, you're wrong. And as far as the myth about women not experiencing sexual desire after childbirth or menopause, I have given birth and I am postmenopausal, so I am living proof that I at least am either the exception to the rule or that the rule is wrong. So yes, ladies, it is possible to desire sex after childbirth and after you've hit menopause. Now, let's pause for a second and talk about the rocky road that women have traversed throughout history when it comes to sex. From being shamed for expressing desire to being treated as mere objects of pleasure, the journey has not been easy. But guess what? We're here, we're fierce, and we're rewriting the script. We refuse to be silenced or sidelined any longer. We are taking back our own power over our own bodies. So I'm going to go over some 10 common challenges that women have faced historically regarding sex. I've mentioned some of these briefly in past episodes, and I've alluded to them in the myths, so they may be familiar to you if you've listened to the podcast before also. So the first one is lack of reproductive rights. I've discussed this ad nauseum, so I'm just going to say that throughout history, women have faced restrictions on their reproductive autonomy, including limited access to contraception and safe abortion services, as well as forced sterilization in some cases. The next one is marital rape. For much of history, the concept of marital rape was not recognized, and women were legally considered the property of their husbands, leading to a lack of legal protection against sexual violence within marriage. And I'm going to pause here for a second, because I do not care. If you are married, that does not make you a sexual slave to your partner. Rape is rape. Rape means you say no, they take it anyway. But again, in the interest of not going dark in this episode, I'm going to move on. So now talking about double standards. Women have often been judged more harshly for their sexual behavior than men, facing stigma and discrimination for expressing their sexuality or having multiple partners, while men were often celebrated for the same behavior. So men are applauded for their sexual conquest, and women are scrutinized and labeled. Well, guess what? We're not here for it. It's time to flip the script and demand equal treatment between the sheets and beyond. And as far as lack of sexual education, historically, women were often denied comprehensive sexual education, leaving them uninformed about their own bodies, sexual health, and consent, which perpetrated ignorance and vulnerability to exploitation. A lot of women did not understand what rape was because nobody went over it with them. And the medicalization of women's sexuality. So throughout history, women's sexual experiences and desires have been pathologized, leading to harmful practices such as forced hysterectomies, genital mutilation, and treatments for hysteria that were actually forms of sexual abuse. Again, I don't want to go dark, so I'm just going to move on to the next point, which is limited access to healthcare. Women have often faced barriers to accessing sexual and reproductive healthcare services, including contraception, STI testing, and treatment, usually due to societal taboos, lack of education, and institutionalized sexism. And talking about objectification and commodification, women's bodies throughout history have been objectified and commodified, leading to the exploitation of women in industries such as pornography, sex work, and advertising, where their sexuality is often used to sell products or entertain men. And legal discrimination throughout history. Laws and policies have historically favored men over women in matters of sexuality, such as laws criminalizing abortion, restricting access to birth control, and denying women the right to divorce or inheritance based on their sexual behavior. And moving on to reproductive coercion. Women have faced coercion and pressure to bear children against their will, whether through forced sterilization, lack of access to contraception, or cultural and familial expectations that prioritize motherhood over women's own desires and autonomy. And the last little nugget of women's sexual history is lack of representation. So women's voices and experiences have often been marginalized in discussions of sexuality, with male perspectives often dominating the narrative, whether in literature, media, academic discourse. And this often leads to a lack of understanding and empathy for women's diverse experiences and needs. But let's not forget our dear friend, the patriarchy. Yes, that age-old system that's been trying to control our bodies since forever. Well, sorry, not sorry, patriarchy, but we are taking our power back. Our bodies, our choices, our pleasure, period. Now let's talk about something crucial: communication. Ladies, it is time to speak up and speak out. Whether it's expressing your desires, setting boundaries, or discussing consent, communication is key. And remember, it's not about talking, it's about listening too. Your partner should be your equal, your ally, and your biggest cheerleader in the bedroom. Now, I don't usually speak in absolutes, but I'm going to right now. Without consent, sex is not healthy. End of discussion. That's it. You can consent to having a dominant and submissive relationship in the bedroom. You can consent to whatever. I don't care. But if there are 2 people involved, 4 people involved, or 10 people involved, consent is a must. Now, I'd like to end today's episode with some tips to help women find sexual freedom. which ironically is one of the things that got me an awful lot of hate on a TikTok post I made, because all I did was I was encouraging women to stop faking orgasms. I was encouraging healthy communication between partners, and I got all kinds of hate in my inbox from a lot of the hate was from men, because at one point I had encouraged women, if they didn't understand their bodies, if they didn't know what made them feel pleasure, then maybe they needed to take some time on their own and figure that out, whether it be through masturbation with, just themselves, or using sex toys. And that's where a lot of the hate came in. One particularly crass gentleman told me that I needed to put my vibrator aside because it was clearly causing some lack of sensation in my vagina. He did not use those words because he was a disgusting pig. But sorry, the TikTok wasn't about me. My sex life is just fine, thanks, and I don't need your information. But anyway, and another person told me that with Jesus's return being imminent, I shouldn't be wasting my time discussing sex, and they said they would pray for me. So yeah, I'm aware that some people don't want to hear about sex, so don't freaking listen. It's that easy. All right, so as we're running out of time, I will wrap this up and talk about some tips to help women find sexual freedom. So, the first tip is to educate yourself. Take the time to learn about your own body, desires, and boundaries. Understanding your own sexuality is the first step towards reclaiming control over it. And next, communicate openly. Talk to your partner or partners about your wants, needs, and boundaries. Healthy communication is key to building trust and mutual respect in any sexual relationship. And next, explore and experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things and explore your desires, whether it's through solo exploration, trying different sexual activities with a partner, or exploring different fantasies. Experimentation can help you discover what brings you pleasure and fulfillment. And next, embrace your fantasies. Fantasies are a normal and healthy part of human sexuality. Don't be ashamed of your fantasies, no matter how unconventional they may seem. Embrace them as a natural expression of your desires, and find a partner who respects those fantasies and your willingness to explore them. And next tip, practice self-care. Prioritize your own pleasure and well-being. Take care of your physical and mental health. Engage in activities that make you feel good, and set boundaries that prioritize your own needs and desires. And next tip, challenge societal norms. Question societal expectations and norms surrounding women's sexuality. Do not be afraid to challenge stereotypes and double standards that limit women's sexual freedom and expression. Next tip is to seek support. Surround yourself with supportive friends, partners, and communities that respect and validate your sexuality. Finding a supportive network can provide encouragement and empowerment as you explore your sexual identity. The next tip I have is to advocate for change. Get involved in activism and advocacy efforts to promote sexual rights and freedoms for women, whether it's supporting reproductive rights, advocating for comprehensive sex education, or fighting against sexual violence and discrimination. Your voice and actions can make a difference. And of course, practice consent and respect. Always prioritize consent and respect in your sexual encounters. Respect your own boundaries and those of your partner or partners, and never pressure or coerce anyone into sexual activity. And finally, embrace your sexual power. Remember that your sexuality is yours to own and to celebrate. Embrace your sexual agency, assertiveness, and autonomy as a woman, and refuse to be constrained by societal expectations or judgments. You have the power to define your own sexual identity and experience, so embrace it with confidence and pride. And let's not forget to be inclusive of all women, whether you're straight, queer, bisexual, pansexual, or anything in between. Your experiences and desires are valid and worthy of celebration. This is a safe space for all women to explore and embrace their sexuality without judgment or shame. So to all the badass women out there, remember this. Your sexuality is a superpower, not something to be hidden or ashamed of. Own it, embrace it, and never apologize for it. Because when women rise, we all rise. All right, queens, that's all for today's episode of the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please spread the word to anyone you think could benefit from a little girl power. Don't forget to email the podcast if you want to hear more about a topic I've covered or to suggest a topic you'd like to hear a little bit more about. Join me next week for more empowering discussions and unapologetic truths. Until then, stay fierce, stay fabulous, and keep buzzing, my queens.